ketogenic diet. Of course, it's not perfect for everybody. Of course, it's not perfect across all contexts, for all people at all times. But in the situation of needing long-term fat loss, significant fat loss, in the cases of people who have like type 2 diabetes, intense inflammation, loads of body fat to lose, a ketogenic diet is probably the most powerful and amazing tool out there. Now, the last few videos I've made, I've been trying to keep things in context for people, because I see a trend of going to the extremes with a lot of this stuff, right? People like to take things to the extremes. This is the internet, the age of extremes, where extremes get attention. So you get a lot of people out there saying keto is the only way. People who don't do it my way are all subhuman idiots who do it wrong. There's a lot of talk out there, a lot of banter, and a lot of nonsense. So we like to keep things in perspective in our family here, and I like to keep things in perspective with the content we put out there. So while a ketogenic diet, it's not perfect for everybody. A ketogenic might be the perfect tool for you if you're looking for long-term fat loss. You got to lose, 10, 20, 50, 100 pounds. A ketogenic diet is incredibly powerful, and let me tell you why. Keto is not perfect for fat loss because it makes all calories inert. You can eat as much fat as you want, as much keto foods as you want, and still lose body fat. It doesn't negate the importance of energy balance. It doesn't negate the laws of physics. What keto does is allows us to drop our hunger levels, to get rid of sugar and sweet cravings, and to effectively get rid of hepatic insulin resistance rather quickly as we burn off the adipose tissues that create that insulin resistance and signal it. And it allows us to do this long term, with minimal pain, with minimal hunger, and without the crazy cravings and blood sugar dysregulation that usually comes along with obesity, inflammation, type 2 diabetes, and high calorie, high carbohydrate with high fat diets, which is the standard American diet. Right? A lot of people like to bash on carbohydrates and say, oh, well, it's all this obesity is because of high carbohydrates. But we're not just eating a high carbohydrate diet now. It's like the Ben & Jerry's is not just high in carbs, it's also high in fat. The donuts, they're not just high in carbs, they're high in fat as well. These are hypercaloric, hyperpalatable, delicious, convenient foods that are relatively low in nutrition, that leave the body wanting for vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients, still desiring that nutrition, but gives it loads of really palatable calories, right? Makes it really easy to overeat. Now what keto does is it signals satiety really effectively. When you drop your carbohydrates, your body will start to burn fat for energy. Now it's been shown in a lot of research that hepatic insulin resistance can be triggered by high carbohydrate consumption and high fructose consumption. Also in some cases high fat consumption, right? Fat doesn't get a free pass. If you overeat any macronutrient, it will be to the detriment of your body. Overeating anything will cause an inflammatory response. Overeating anything can cause fat gain. But in the absence of carbohydrate, the body can clear out a lot of hepatic insulin resistance and hepatic, they call it non-alcoholic fatty liver. You get rid of the fat in the liver, and a ketogenic state induces satiety very, very effectively. Now, if you looked at some of the research on insulin resistance and overfeeding on certain foods, there was a recent study, I don't even know how recent, but it was on rats, and they were fed 60% fructose in their diet. And it rapidly induced hepatic insulin resistance. Also, high fructose diets in rats seems to interfere with leptin signaling. In the hypothalamus, leptin signals satiety. It's a satiety hormone. So leptin resistance seems to be associated with very high fructose intake. When you're cutting out carbohydrates, you're cutting out all those super high concentrated high fructose foods. And I'm not saying fructose in general is bad, right? In reasonable amounts from fruits, from natural foods in its natural form, not a problem. This was a 60% fructose diet. I mean, these were basically rats guzzling down the equivalent of a bunch of Cokes every day. So, this induced a state of leptin resistance. Very, very interesting. Leptin is a satiety hormone. You want leptin, you want to be leptin sensitive. Now, Also, the rise in triglycerides, it's known to be associated with high fructose intake, high carbohydrate intake, could be associated with this leptin resistance. But the leptin studies are a really interesting thing. And I'm talking about leptin because ketogenic diets induce satiety really effectively. They make you just not hungry. They make it easy to not eat. They make it easy to go long periods of time without food. If you're eating a high carbohydrate diet all the time, you've got hepatic insulin resistance and physiological insulin resistance. Just chronic insulin resistance throughout the body. Blood sugar is all over the place, going up and down, creating hunger, creating crashes after the meals. This is not enjoyable, and we'll self-medicate this through trying to intake glucose when the body's starving for fuel. Even in the excess of fuel, it's like the body is starving for it. So, ketogenic diet really effectively induces satiety, helps us to eat less. In order to lose body fat, we do have to find strategies for long-term to help ourselves to build a foundation of habits that allows us not to overeat. And a keto diet does this really effectively. The most satiating macronutrient is protein. Protein across the board, across all macro spreads, will induce satiety better than other macronutrients. We've got a minimum requirement for protein. So a well-formulated ketogenic diet will give you sufficient protein. I usually err on the safe side, meaning the higher side of the ketogenic protein recommended daily intake as put out there by Volek and Finney and a lot of the ketogenic research. I usually err on the side of about 0.8 grams per pound of your lean body mass as sufficient protein. That should be more than enough for most people. About 1.5, 1.6 grams per kilogram of your lean body mass if you're looking at it in kilograms. Now, fat is going to make up the energy portion of the diet. And for fat loss, what keto allows is for us to long-term create a foundation of habits that lets us burn body fat long-term, right? Because if we're eating a bolus of dietary fat, dietary carbohydrate all the time, we're not going to tap into our reserve tank, right? Just like with a dirt bike or with a vehicle, if you've got a full tank, it's not going to automatically switch over to the reserve tank. Unlike the nice old dirt bikes of the past, you can't just reach down, switch a little switch and say, hey, I'm going to burn body fat today. Right? In an excess of caloric intake, with excess calories, we won't burn our reserve fuel. So keto allows us to drop our hunger levels, to be not hungry, to have stable blood sugar in the absence of constant bolus of foods. And this is where the magic happens, because you're just not hungry and you get to burn body fat long term. Because on a ketogenic diet, that fat portion of the diet, which is the energy portion, is not just going to come from the plate when you're looking for fat loss. So, a ketogenic diet for many reasons might be the most powerful tool available for fat loss, especially long term. While it's not perfect for everybody and in every single context, the context of type 2 diabetes, in the context of lowering body fat, carbohydrate restriction is a very, very important tool. And a ketogenic diet just might be the most powerful tool for losing body fat long term in that context. So you can find more at primaledgehealth.com. Remember, a ketogenic diet is not perfect in every context, but in this context, for fat loss, type 2 diabetes, for reducing inflammation, shoot, for traumatic brain injury, there's so many contexts which would make a ketogenic diet incredibly valuable as a tool. So use the tool, use it effectively, use it in the right context. Don't make it the lens through which you perceive all reality. Keep it in context, keep it in perspective. Keto, powerful tool for fat loss. If you're looking for more information, check out primaledgehealth.com. We got loads of videos here. Make sure to subscribe, share if you like it, and all that. But most importantly, check out my wife's cookbook, the Ketogenic Edge Cookbook, a training manual, because it's a legit training manual for low carbohydrate, ketogenic, and paleo cuisine. We call it a training manual. Those of you who watch my videos know why. Because it's not just a list of recipes. This is a legitimate training manual to help you master the practice of making well-rounded, well-formulated ketogenic meals. Every single recipe has got macros. All those macros are fat loss friendly too, because we know that 95% of the people doing a ketogenic diet out there are doing it for fat loss. 95% of the clients that come to me, well, maybe 85%, because a lot of people are doing it just for optimization of their cognition and for decreasing inflammation and improving their life. But 85% of the people out there are also doing it for fat loss. So like we said earlier, that requires us to burn some body fat, not just dietary fat. So all of our macros on this book are fat loss friendly. It's all nutrient dense, whole foods ingredients, no artificial sweeteners, no junk food, none of that stuff. It's about building habits that are sustainable long term. Nutrient dense, whole, unrefined foods are always going to be better for fat loss, health, longevity, satiety than prepackaged processed junk food with artificial sweeteners and stuff like that. So we made this cookbook for people like us. We made this cookbook basically thinking, what would we have wanted when we were starting out a ketogenic diet as a resource? And Jessica spent over a year and a half making this book. It's finally available at primaledgehealth.com. You can get it in the ebook format. It's not available anywhere else. You're not gonna find it on Amazon. You're not gonna find it anywhere else but primaledgehealth.com. So check out the Ketogenic Edge cookbook. A ketogenic diet, while it's not perfect in every context, just might be the most powerful fat loss tool that you can use as far as diet goes. Now, here's what I want you to do. Get away from the computer. Get off of social media. Go outside. Get in nature. Go do something real. Go do something valuable. Go do something visceral. Go live your life away from all this media, social media nonsense. I'll see you guys next time. primaledgehealth.com. Check out the cookbook.